Welcome back. Now, everyone is talking about the bizarre opening ceremony at the Olympics. Did you catch it? Did you catch the second act theme? Universal health care, we're not making it up. You're going to see here nurses standing around fake hospital beds. This is all about Britain's single-payer service. It's called the National Health Service. It's getting a major shout-out. Again, it's the government-run single-payer system that shows the directors are calling an amazing thing to celebrate. And Jonathan Honig says, wait a second. England is trying to send a message to the world that's really political, and it's nothing to celebrate and everything to fear. He's joined by fellow Fox Business all-star Richard Benjamin. Jonathan.
Bizarre is the right word, Liz. I mean, I watched these opening ceremonies, especially the second act, as he pointed out, found them to be tremendously dreary, bleak, almost bordering on malevolent, and especially that period, that part that included the children dancing on hospital beds, the dirty factory workers. I mean, it's such a far cry from even the '84 Olympic ceremonies, which I remember, the heroic image of an American with a jetpack soaring through the sky. I mean, this was such an ugly, depraved message, and of course, at the center of it was collectivism, in this case, national health care, that the English are trying to promote. I find it pretty disturbing.
All right, you know, to Jonathan's point here, Richard, I mean, what are we going to, if the U.S. has the Olympics, what are we going to see? Postal workers chasing airport TSA workers through a government paid for a solar field? What's coming next? I'm joking, but you know what I mean. What did you make of that, though? What was your reaction to that?
I was instantly charmed. Just imagining these flipping kids in the hospital
beds. So you
beds,
like Mary Poppins,
one day becoming Olympians. That juxtaposition between sick kids, one day becoming future Olympians. I like that, between health and vigor. I thought it was absolutely charming.
So you like the nurses and the doctors on the Olympic field running around hospital beds. You found that charming, right?
Because these kids with proper health and proper health care will one day become Olympians. So I thought, imagining their potential, their health, I thought it was great.
All right, Jonathan, what do you make of that?
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty sad. You need not only look too far to imagine the potential of socialized healthcare, Liz. In every society in which it's been practiced, it has failed miserably. So much, in fact, we've regularly heard stories about patients in England, not to mention Canada, coming to the United States for their important treatment. But, you know, you didn't have to look too far in those opening ceremonies to see collectivism on display. It was present simply in the presence of the Queen. I mean, what makes America so unusual is that in America, the first society in history where your life belongs to yourself. You're not here for the greater good, for sick children, for down on the workers. You have a right to your own life. In societies that rely on a monarch or a queen or a king or an exalted leader, that's simply not the case, and that's not America.
You know, getting back to what we saw on the field there, I mean, the issue is injecting politics into the Olympics here. Didn't that bother you?
Well, there's always a bit of politics in the Olympics. People celebrate their pride in the country that's hosting the Olympics.
But why didn't they have private sector Mary Poppins running around? Because she was a private sector house nanny.
They had her floating around a little bit, but I agree. I mean, this needs to be celebrated. Britain has something to be proud of in its healthcare system, and so do we.
But what do they have to be proud about? Let me just push back a little bit, because Britain's costs for healthcare rising at a faster rate than the United States. So is Canada's, Richard. Is that something that we did not see, that Americans and the world did not see and celebrate it?
Well, we are one of the only developed nations that don't have a social health player where people don't fall through the cracks. And so, by the way, Americans are proud of, they'll no longer be kicked off because of pre-existing conditions. Young adults can stay on their parents' health plan. This is extremely popular for this country.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
Richard actually just makes my point. I mean, America is the only country in the world history where you have a right to your own life. Yes, Richard, you're not responsible for taking care of whoever the Queen or the exalted leader says. You have a right to your own life, your liberty, your pursuit of happiness. But what you're describing is a society where, you know, you're obligated to pay for your neighbors everything.
John, do you think
is that something to celebrate?
Do you think Danny Boyle was making a nod to Obamacare or Romney Care? I mean, it's difficult to know who he was celebrating there.
Yeah, Jonathan, what do you think?
Well, I just found the whole opening ceremonies, again, I think back to some great Olympic moments, moments that celebrate a true achievement, individual achievement, running fast, the Carl Lewises, the Mary Lou Rettons of our era. To me, those are historic, ironic, idyllic Olympic moments.
Iconic, you meant iconic.
Iconic, exactly.
Yeah. Well,
iconic
you have all
moments.
that. You have that. You have the successful athletes.
You
You
didn't
have
think
the
it was
individual
weird? You
competitors.
didn't think it was kind of weird to see hospital beds on the grounds? I mean, we get it. We understand the message. And by the way, we are already headed toward a single-payer system. You know, the government spends, you know, half of the healthcare system is basically through Medicare and Medicaid, right? But setting that aside, didn't you just feel a little off-putting?
Not at all. No. It was very entertaining. It came from left field, and it was surprising. It wasn't the usual nonsense celebratory propaganda.
So you would be happy if the Olympics were here in the United States if we were celebrating Amtrak?
Well, Amtrak isn't comparable to social health care. They always make me late.
Well, but who says that?
Well,
Go ahead, Jonathan.
It's the same thing. It's a government monopoly. That's exactly what we're going to have in this country when it comes to health care. Just as we have it with railroads, just as we have it with the post office, to Liz's earlier point. So, you know,
why don't we have a U.S.
ceremony.
Olympics that celebrates Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac?
No, those are analogous. And by the way, he hasn't answered the question whether it was celebrating, in fact, Romneycare or Obamacare, because the
I'll answer. It was tremendously dreary. It was tremendously bleak. If you found it enjoyable, I don't know. Maybe you were watching another station. I thought it was a pretty ugly comment on the Olympic dream and Olympic heroes that we're all trying to celebrate.
All right, Richard, you get the final word.
I think that we have a lot to celebrate, and hopefully if we have the Olympics in this country, there are national things that we're going to celebrate besides Freddie Mac or the postal system. And even if they're collective, even if they're individualistic, they all belong in that beautiful medley that we saw Danny
So you're
Boyle
for a
produce.
collectivist Olympics. I'm teasing you. You did get the final word. Always good to see you. You're going to be back in a little bit later. Now, two titans of tech battling out in court. And